Hello, welcome to the UPSC Quick Revision series. Today we will discuss a very important topic in the Indian economy, fiscal deficit and the FRBM Act. The fiscal deficit is a key indicator of any government's financial health, reflecting its borrowing requirements. The FRBM Act was enacted to enforce discipline over this deficit. Our agenda for today is as follows. We will understand the definition of fiscal deficit, its implications, the targets of the FRBM Act, and the recent changes made to it. So, what exactly is fiscal deficit? In simple terms, it is the difference between the government's total expenditure and its total income in a financial year, excluding borrowings. The formula is fiscal deficit is equal to total expenditure minus revenue receipts plus non-debt creating capital receipts. This figure tells us the total amount of borrowing the government needs to undertake that year to meet its expenses. It's usually expressed as a percentage of the GDP. When the fiscal deficit becomes too high, it has several negative effects on the economy. The first is the debt trap. The government has to borrow more just to pay the interest on its past loans, causing the country to fall into a vicious cycle of debt. Second, if the government borrows from the RBI to finance the deficit, the money supply in the market increases, which leads to inflation. Third, when the government borrows heavily from the market, less money is available for the private sector to invest, which is called the crowding out effect. And finally, it places a burden of debt on future generations. To tackle these problems, the Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management or FRBM Act was enacted in 2003. The main objective of this law was to bring transparency to India's fiscal management systems and to set a long-term goal of fiscal stability for the government. It aimed to progressively reduce the fiscal deficit and completely eliminate the revenue deficit. The law made it mandatory for the government to present certain key financial statements in Parliament along with the budget every year. Initially, the FRBM Act set a target to eliminate the revenue deficit and bring down the fiscal deficit to 3% of GDP by 2008. However, due to various reasons, including the global financial crisis, these targets were postponed multiple times. In 2016, a committee was formed under the chairmanship of N.K. Singh to review the Act. This committee gave a new direction and recommended that debt to GDP ratio should be the main anchor of fiscal policy. The committee suggested a target of 60% by 2023, 40% for the centre and 20% for the states. The N.K. Singh Committee introduced a very important concept called the escape clause. This allows the government to deviate from its fiscal deficit target under certain special circumstances, such as national security, war, or a national calamity. However, this deviation cannot exceed 0.5% of GDP in a year. Recently, the government invoked this escape clause during the economic crisis caused by the COVID-19 pandemic to increase spending on health and welfare. Due to this, the fiscal deficit targets have been revised, and the government's current goal is to bring it below 4.5% by 2025-26. Now, let's test our understanding with some practice questions. For more such videos, keep watching Vision IAS.